that's one question I actually had of someone for you, and we could probably kick it off with afterwards. Is how are you and your boys dealing with it? Obviously, being in the fight game, as well as you personally, because it's such a high pressure environment. That was one of the. I had a few people ask me the same thing, so we can get into that for sure.
Sure, mate.
But firstly, I reckon what we do is let's introduce you and introduce like what and give people 10 minutes. Like, I'll just shush for 5 minutes and go into your past, man. Your past, fucking wicked, as in your journey. Obviously, being you were in the military, and now you're the head S&C of Tiger Muay Thai. Just a little bit about sort of who are you and where you're from, and your transition. I've got quite a few fellas who are in the military, who've been in the military, and you're one of the few that isn't on the edge half the time. You're happy where you are, man, and it's an interesting concept.
G'day, my name's Shaun Kober. I'm currently the head strength and conditioning coach at the world-renowned Tiger Muay Thai and MMA training camp based in Phuket, Thailand. I've been there for a number of years, almost 3 years now, and I've been head coach for almost 2.5 years. Before that, I had my own business as a personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach. I lived in Tasmania for about 5 years. And prior to that, I was in the army for 6 years and was deployed as an infantry soldier and a sniper to Iraq, East Timor, and Afghanistan. So here I am in Thailand, going through the old quarantine and, sticking to my guns, sticking to my schedule. I'm actually enjoying the time to be able to, work on my own projects and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, wow. It's not a mouthful you hear half the time, man. That's such a wicked pass. And like you said, how did you, so obviously you play rugby as well, so people didn't know, a keen footy player as well. What got you into Tiger Muay Thai itself? What was obviously, I'm going to assume the travel and seeing the world and being with sort of elite level athletes like in the army. But what sort of drove you, one, to go there, and two, to sort of stick at it? Because I mean, you've had some pretty prolific fighters underneath you as well, which you can go over in a minute.
So I first came to Tiger Muay Thai in 2013. I got out of the army after I returned from Afghanistan in 2000. I returned from Afghanistan in 2011, got out of the army in 2012, met a girl in Darwin where I lived, moved down to Tasmania to pursue her, just pretty much like packed up my fucking life and pursued her down there. So, it was like, I don't really have much up here for me anymore. So I'll give it a crack and see what happens. And, we're realists about that. And pretty much from 2013 until I moved back to Thailand in 2017, we traveled the world for 3 or 4 months every year. And I had my own PT business, strength and conditioning, and she was a yoga teacher and a PT as well. So we'd work for 8 or 9 months and then go traveling for 3 or 4 months. And 2013, we did 6 months around the world, did 3 months through Southeast Asia and then 3 months through Europe. And we'd gone through Malaysia, or Singapore, Malaysia, up into Thailand, and we'd spent a week over in Patong, which is, for those that have been to Phuket, it's the other side of the island. That's the party joint. So we'd spent a week over there, and we were just drinking, and we'd been on the road for about a month, and we're like, we need to go and get our heads straight and get back into some training. So we did a little bit of research, and a couple of my mates had actually come over to Tiger Muay Thai a couple of years, or the year preceding. So I contacted them, and then, we made the move over to the other side of the island, and we spent a week training at Tiger Muay Thai. I think that was about April 2013. Spent a week there, continued traveling through, the islands of Thailand, and then across to, Cambodia, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. Then we ended up in Europe for 3 months, and on the way back home to Australia, we decided we'd stop off in Thailand because we'd been on the road for 6 months by then, and we're drinking beer and
living a dream,
fucking pasta and like all the good foods around Europe. So, we decided to stop in at Tiger on the way home and did another 2-week stint where we wrote up our resumes and sent them off to gyms and studios back in Tasmania. And basically got off the plane and walked into our new job. So, that was the first time I came, man, and absolutely loved it. And that was, from then, that was kind of like the first time that it planted the seed that this is something that I'd love to do. I'd love to come over here for 6 months and live here and train for 6 months and coach. So year after year after year, I kept coming back. That first year was 2013. I came back for a week and then 2 weeks at the end of the year. 2014, I think we traveled around hiking the Himalayas in Nepal, went through India, Mauritius for a wedding, did like 4 months. 2015, I came back to Thailand, trained for a month. My girlfriend at the time went to India and did some yoga work for a yoga course or something for a month. Then 2016, I came back again. I ended up guest coaching at one of the gyms here. So for those that don't know, the Soi Thai in Thailand, it's a strip that's like 1.5 to 2 kilometers long, and it's called Fitness Street. And it's just, there's like 8, 9, 10 different gyms on the street. The whole street's catered towards health and fitness with accommodation, restaurants, cafes. Like I said, multiple gyms and supplement stores and gear stores and things like that. So yeah, it's awesome, man. So yeah, I kept coming back year after year, and that was part of my 3 to 4 months of traveling. Well, I would come over to Thailand and train for a month, and my girlfriend at the time would go to like Bali or India or other areas of Thailand for yoga teacher training, and then we'd meet up somewhere and we'd travel for a couple of months. So that was it was awesome, man. But yeah, I ended up guest coaching at a gym in 2016 for a month whilst I was here, and then 2017, my girlfriend and I, we've been together for 5 years, and we just decided that we were going to go our separate ways because she wanted our values had changed realistically, so we're going in different directions, and we still loved and cared about each other, but we had an adult conversation about it and said, look, let's preserve this friendship, instead of becoming resentful and making too many compromises essentially for each other. So it just got to the point where we had that adult conversation. We said, look, let's go our separate ways, and we'll figure it out from there. If we want to get back together in the future, then we will. If not, then whatever. But anyway, I ended up in Thailand, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just packed up all my shit and drove up
Moved
to my
over,
mum's place
done.
Outside of Sydney, and like literally just dropped everything off in my mum's house in the spare room in the cupboard there, and packed a backpack for 2 months. I had a 2-month contract, internship with Tiger Muay Thai at the time, because I'd kind of built a relationship with them over the years, and I knew a few people there, and I'd obviously been coming back and forth to and from the Soi for many years, so I kind of had that network, and I was lucky enough to get offered a 2-month internship, and then I got here and got stuck into work, not knowing whether I was going to be here for 2 months, for 6 months, for a year, whether I was going to go travel the world, or I had no idea what I was doing. To be honest, I was just figuring it out as I went. And after a month, of that 2-month contract, they offered me a full-time job. So I agreed to that because I love it over here, and this is where I wanted to be. And then within 5 or 6 months, the head coach at the time left, and I applied for the position and got the gig. So I've been the head strength and conditioning coach at Tiger for 2.5 years now, after coming over as an intern, then getting offered a full-time job, and then becoming head coach. So pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one as well, because it's like you said, is you've had your head screwed on for a long time, but you've earned the stripes to be in the position you've been in. I think a lot of people don't understand what experience is, and you've worked with the general population, you've worked with elite level athletes. One of the questions that I actually was asked was, how do you actually switch mindsets? Because obviously dealing with the professional athlete, I mean, you people don't know, you were training, is it Petr, the
Petr, yeah.
The dude's
he's actually just been, he's a beast, man. He's actually just been offered the first title shot after the UFC 249 on the weekend.
Wow.
Cejudo just beat Dominic Cruz and then announced his immediate retirement. So Dana White came out and said that Petr was going to be fighting someone, we don't know who yet, for the vacant title. So I'm excited, man. I've been working with him for over 2 years. He approached me before he made his UFC debut in June 2018. So he's gone 5-0 in the UFC at the moment. He's just been on an absolute tear, but he's a weapon, man. His last
fight was against Uriah Faber, is that right? Where I think he shocked a few people, man. I watched it back because I was just making sure I had all my facts straight, and this dude's a fucking nutter.
He's a beast, bro.
Yeah. So obviously at Tiger, you have the professional setup, which is, like you said, that's his life. He's a killer. If he didn't have a UFC contract, he'd probably go to prison. And then you've got the dudes who are coming over, who are either coming, like you said, if people know places like Unit 27 and all that, and they're going for like a week detox. But you've also Tiger do strength conditioning sessions, boot camps, general population training, all geared towards fighting or fight conditioning. What's your what as a coach, what are your go-to? What have you learned over the years of dealing with it when you're coaching a room full of athletes or people that are aspiring to be performance driven, or you're dealing with the general population who still want to train hard but haven't got the next level of competency in that? What's that like?
Yeah. And this is where the art of coaching comes into play. You know, you can have all the fucking science, man. You can understand, you know, the different protocols for building strength and power and speed and, you know, energy system conditioning and all that sort of shit. But at the end of the day, man, you need to apply the right tool at the appropriate time for the person. So, I mean, for me, this comes down to my coaching philosophy, and then 2, my training philosophy. And those 2 things literally guide everything else that I do, right? So my coaching philosophy is, if I'm not affecting my clients outside of that 1 hour of training session, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
Right. So that means I need to have a look at their lifestyle. I need to have a look at, you know, their sleep duration, their sleep quality, their stress management techniques and tools. I'm looking at hydration. I'm looking at nutrition. I'm looking at how much fucking sun they're getting throughout the day. You know, I'm looking at overall health markers, man. You know, obviously we did the Muscle Nerds course together. That's how we know each other. And that was a massive thing for me, man. Like, I'd already been kind of utilizing these health markers, but not to that extent. So getting that data, that information of the you know, the heart rate variability, blood pressure and waking heart rate makes a massive difference on, you know, telling us how much stress essentially our body is under. And then that's also going to guide the direction that we need to go. So that's my coaching philosophy. I'm looking at, it's 24 hours, man. If I'm not fucking affecting my clients in the other 23 hours and we're not optimizing that time, then I'm not going to be able to get the most out of them when I do have that 1 hour of training time. So I need to make sure that I'm focusing on the other 23 hours so that we can really optimize that 1 hour that we've got together. So there's the coaching philosophy. My training philosophy is give the people a lot of what they need and a little of what they want. Because a lot of people actually don't know what the fuck they need to do.
Yeah.
They think they do. They think they need to hammer themselves with training. They think they need to be super restrictive. They think they need to, you know, be all in essentially, right? But that's all well and good when motivation's there. But man, motivation doesn't last. It fucking comes and goes, right? So this is where the structure comes into play. And it's like, you know, coming back to one of my philosophies is training should complement your day or it should counteract your day, right? If you're an office worker and you're sitting in at a desk for 10 to 12 hours a day and your hip flexors are short and tight, your shoulders are rolled forward, your head's jutting forward, right? Going to the gym and doing box jumps and burpees are not going to do shit for you, and fuckloads of push-ups and squats are not going to do shit for you, right? So this is where you go, all right, like I'm locked in this position for 10, 12 hours a day. Why don't I go to the gym and focus on, you know, those flexors are pulling you into this rounded flex position, this is why people end up in the fetal position when they're fucking when they're tired, when they're run down, when they're sick, right? When they're hungover, because it's an energy it's an energy conserving position, right? So when I go to the gym, if I'm doing that for 10, 12 hours a day, I need to go to the gym and focus on my extensors, right? I'm looking at my hips, my hamstrings. I'm pulling my, working through the muscles of the back to pull my shoulder blades down and back and pull my shoulder girdle back into good alignment, you know? So, and again, this is where a lot of people don't really understand what they need. They think they just need to train more and more and more and more, right? But I mean, if you don't address these positions that you find yourself in throughout the day, because we adapt, we're adaptation machines, man. We adapt to whatever we're doing, right? Consistently. So
absolutely,
you know, yeah, we need to address that when we go to the gym. If we're going to the gym, it's not about, here's the thing, man. If people are going to the gym to burn fat, then you're fucking doing it wrong. That's like me saying to you, dude, that's like me saying to you, hey, Will, I see you going for a drive, bro. Where are you going? And you're like, I'm just going to burn some fuel. I'm like, well, that's fucking stupid, isn't it?
Fucking stupid. But yeah, mate, it's a huge frustration because, like I said, in the difference between my environments and your, I would say is more, like you said, is you get the guys who are either who are big on doing that quite short term. Like obviously when you go down to the strip in Thailand, there's a lot of like detox and cleanse and calorie restriction. But like this is one of the things that I massively resonate with you is like you're showing us only one part of literally the minutia of what their training life should be. And like people are going out and they're trying to figure out the biggest question I ever get asked is, how do I burn more fat? Or what exercise burns the most fat? And no one's ever addressing the obvious factors of stress, lifestyle management, sleep, digestion, nutrition, recovery, all these other things that are hugely important. So 100%. how do you because it's what interests me about you is that the guys you're dealing with, that 1% is the difference between Yanni whacking him and knocking him out or him getting battered. Whereas other guys, obviously most people with the general population, even if I deal with quite a lot of like non-professional fighters, so guys who roll and do jiu-jitsu 5 days a week, or MMA fighters, but they've got kids and they've got a really high level job. And like you said, that they go into the gym thinking, right, I'm going to bench. And that is the worst thing they can do because their bodies are, they're such a different animal. How are you coaching that to someone who is so highly strung, man? Like those guys you're dealing with are like another level of.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there, man. The first thing I want to talk about before we go into the difference between general population and professional athletes is we need to discuss the autonomic nervous system, right? So for those that don't know, the autonomic nervous system controls 80-90% of your body's physiological processes, right? So this is what keeps your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your digestive system working, your hormone regulation, like literally all of the systems talking to each other. Okay, this all goes on at a subconscious level. You don't even need to think about this, right? So the branches of the autonomic nervous system are the sympathetic branch, which is fight or flight, and we have the parasympathetic branch, which is rest and digest, right? Now, some people say that they're opposites, okay? I like to think of them as synergists. Yeah, the sympathetic fight or flight it's a short-term stress response, essentially, right? So it's essential for short-term survival. Think about that as being the accelerator. Like when you want to get shit done, boom, you push yourself into a sympathetic state. You get this physiological cascade that happens in the body to essentially, start dilating pupils, increasing heart rate, respiratory rate, blood flow, mobilizing energy, resources, push them towards the limbs so you can, and then starts regulating your hormones, increasing adrenaline, cortisol, blah, 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 blah. Right? So that gets shit done for us. Now, the parasympathetic state is our rest and digest. This is our break. This is where we're putting our foot on the brake and we're slowing down. Like if I'm approaching a roundabout, for example, like I don't just hammer the accelerator and then the brake. Okay, I'm kind of balancing them back and forth. When it's time to put my foot on the accelerator, I'll put my foot on the accelerator. When it's safe, right?
Yeah.
When I get my feedback sensors tell me that the environment, that it's safe to put the foot on the accelerator. All right, cool. If it's not safe, then I'll put my foot on the brake. That's essentially the sympathetic, parasympathetic, right? So the parasympathetic is our rest and digest. This is where those physiological processes are the opposite. Okay, so then our pupils start constricting, our heart rate decreases, our respiratory rate decreases. Our body starts mobilizing energy and resources, pushing that back in towards the digestive system. So why this is important to note is that we don't adapt in the gym. Okay, people think they go to the gym, they hammer themselves, and they're going to adapt. Okay, that's fucking bullshit. And if you're doing that, you're just spinning your wheels, man. That's like
ready for injury, boss, as well.
Yeah, man. Think about it like this, bro. Like if like a healthy organism is an adaptable organism, right? So if I have a car and I've got 4 flat tires and no engine oil, no power steering fluid, no brake fluid, the timing belt's off, the wheels need fucking balancing, etc. Me just putting my foot on the accelerator, it's not going to get me there any quicker. It's just going to rev my engine out. It's going to burn my car out, right? So instead of focusing on putting my foot on the accelerator and trying to go there harder and faster, why don't I just service my car? why don't I just fucking fix my car? Get it running correctly first, right? Pump up my tires, put in some oil, put in some fucking transmission fluid, etc. You know, then when I go and put my foot on the accelerator, now I'm in a good place to be able to adapt. Again, a healthy organism is an adaptable organism. And you know this from the Muscle Nerds course. I like what Luke Lehman says. He's got least mode and beast mode, right? Least mode is like, let's literally focus on getting you into a fucking healthy position. So then we can go and put our foot on the accelerator, get you into beast mode and get that adaptation, right? So, sorry, that was a bit of a rant there, bro.
No. It's good, man. It's good. I think it's, like you said, it's interesting. People who don't know you as well know that you're a yoga teacher. You've done a yoga qualification. So you've taken the paradigms of that. You're dealing with the highest sympathetic driven sport you could probably do into the lowest parasympathetic. So it's a huge part of what I'm trying to educate people in my sector, because a lot of the guys, as you said, who I'm dealing with are the amateur sports people, but they've got high level jobs and they don't understand the difference between what physical stress is and life stresses. And
Sweet.
that,
I was just going to talk about that.
Yeah, no, you go, man. Go.
Yeah. So, again, you've got the autonomic nervous system, two branches, sympathetic, parasympathetic, right? Now we need to balance them out, right? Now here's something to think about. Different responses are going to have, or different stimulus, or the same stimulus, you and I could have the same stimulus and we're going to have different responses, right? We could literally do the same thing. For example, like I like going scuba diving. It's therapeutic for me, man. I love being underwater and, you know, just focusing on my breath and, you know, just paying attention to my immediate environment. I've got no distractions, man. I love it. It's like a fucking meditative state for me.
Literally, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but for you or for someone else listening, you know, they're 30 meters underwater breathing through a fucking tube. You know, that's bringing on a parasympathetic state for me. That's bringing them into a sympathetic state because they're, you know, in this environment where they can't control, where they have no control essentially, right? So that same exercise or the same thing is pushing me into a parasympathetic state. It's pushing them into a sympathetic state, right? So this is important to note, is that, you know, different things are going to elicit different responses at different times. Now, it's important to know that if we swing too hard in one direction, then we're typically going to swing hard in the other direction. So I'll give you an example of this. This is a spiel that I constantly go through at Tiger, because Tiger's you know, it's a world-class facility. It's a destination gym. People fly in from all over the world to train there. And, you know, it's expensive, man. So, you know, people are paying good fucking money. We've got like 150 classes on the schedule every week, right? So what do you think people want to do? So we've got like a full, you know, man, people want to do everything, right? Which is all well and good, right? So this is I coach mostly the strength and conditioning class there, but I am the head coach, so I, you know, kind of manage the whole fitness department. But here's a spiel that I typically go through with people. I'm like, guys, if you're here for a week, sweet, get after it, train as much as you want, right? Enjoy it. If you're here for 2 weeks, yeah, train as much as you want within reason, manage it. Okay. If you're here for a month, make sure that you manage yourself, because, you know, people go from these highly stressful environments at home where they're, you know, they've got financial issues, they've got relationship issues, they've got, you know, career considerations, they've got mortgages and repayments and kids and all this other life, man. Right. So they literally go from this environment here. And here's the thing, you know, again, it's not, those things might not necessarily be high level stresses. Okay. But let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, your relationship is a little bit rocky and you know, it's causing you a 3 out of 10 stress. Right. And then you've got some financial issues where, you know, maybe your company's being bought out or something like that, and that's causing you a 5 out of 10 stress. Maybe the kids are playing up at school or, you know, you're homeschooling them or whatever. They're being little shits. That's causing you a 2 out of 10 stress. And then you've got a mortgage and all these things add up, and they're not massive stresses, man. That's not like, you know, you've had your partner's just died, or you fucking
something big.
Or exactly. Or you found out your partner's fucking having an affair or something like that. Like those are going to be obviously massive level stresses, right? But so those might be like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Right? But these low level stresses, they add up, man. You know, and the more those things add up and they're not dealt with, the more you swing into a sympathetic state, right? And then this is where your body needs to swing back into a parasympathetic state. So going back to the spiel that I give at Tiger, people go from this home environment where they've got all these low level stresses, right? Now they come to Tiger and they're like, right, I'm going to train because training's fucking good for me. And yes, training is good for you. Okay. Within reason, but it's
Within
also
reason.
dose dependent. Yeah. It's dose dependent, man. Okay. Training's a stress, right? We drive the sympathetic nervous system. We provide stimulus. Then when we come into a parasympathetic nervous system, the body goes, right, I only just, dealt with that stress. I didn't deal with that stress very well. Now, when I eat food, I'm going to break that down, digest, absorb, assimilate, and start pushing those raw materials to those systems that I've just put under stress so that I can deal with that stress better next time, right? But that's the important thing. You drive the sympathetic nervous system, you put your body under stress, and then you allow your body to come back the other way, rest, digest, provide the raw materials in the right amounts at the right time, in the right ratios, but then your body to start, upregulating those systems that you damage, right? So people go from this low level stress at home, then they come to Tiger, sweet, let's train. And they're training 4 or 5 times a day. So you're literally just
full on as well.
Dude, you're literally just replacing one stress with another stress. Your body does not understand the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat, right? So let's think about this. If, evolutionary speaking, again, the sympathetic nervous system is essential for short-term survival. So you're walking along, a fucking lion comes out of the jungle, right? You get this physiological cascade. Pupils dilate so you can see better, muscle tone increases, blood flow increases, respiratory rate, heart rate, et cetera, okay? Fight or flight, boom. You bail out, you get to a safe place. Now, everything's jacked up. Right? Now when your brain goes, all right, cool. Now you're in a safe space. Let's go back the other way. Okay. You only just outran that lion. We need to make you bigger, stronger, faster so you can deal with that better next time. Next time food comes in, let's start, reinforcing these systems that are going to allow me to deal with that stress better next time. Right. So it's an evolutionary response. It's absolutely essential for short-term survival. Right. But the rest and digest parasympathetic state is fucking critical for long-term survival. Right. The problem is that this day and age that we live in, right, that's a real threat. This day and age that we live in, we've got perceived threats everywhere. Right. You wake up in the morning, you sleep through your alarm, you get an email from some asshole that doesn't like what you've done with a project. Then you've got, financial stresses, you've got relationship
family stresses,
blah, 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 blah. So we've got all these massive, all these low level stresses that add up over time, right? And that becomes acute stress, lion in the jungle, chronic stress, life. Right? Yeah. There's a difference. Acute stress, essential for survival. Chronic stress is just low level stresses that have built up over time, man. So this is where it comes to, balancing everything out. So sorry, I did go off on tangent again then.
No, but it's cool, man. It's funny how, like you said, it's because you deal with such a broad spectrum of people. It's really interesting to hear your philosophies on actually what you're considering, because a lot of people would associate you, so everyone thinks strength and conditioning is American football, MMA, smash, grab, hammer.
Yeah.
Where it comes down to the conundrum of it depends, which is it depends on so much variability on the shit that you need to be getting done in the parasympathetic side of things, your life. Rather than everyone who I put this question on Instagram to ask you questions, and most of them are training specific stuff like how many strength and conditioning sessions should an amateur fighter be doing? How many, what exercises should they be working on? What sort of this?
Depends.
Whereas it depends. But the bigger picture of it is what are your protocols to get away from being in that heightened state the whole time? So the guys that I deal with 2 international fighters who fight for Singapore, but they're 20 years old. They haven't got a job, and they train jiu-jitsu every day. So they act and live like an athlete, but they've also got the extra boost of being young, high testosterone, eat what they want. They're lean, they're fucking strong, whatever. The normal dude who's 40, who competes in the Masters, is got so much more other shit to get right before he worries about his training. And it's funny how you put this, and it's also really wicked to see how you're packaging that to actually say to people, look, man, I know you're here for a month, but don't be a dick. And that is, I get the same, but I've got CEOs rather than people wanting to fight and train. And mine's more like stress relief. And the same question, man. I want to get lean. How much are you sleeping? 3 hours. How much you eating? 1,100 calories. Well, it's the same conversations, and I find it's interesting you have that on a way bigger scale than what we have here. And then when you are dealing with a professional athlete, how are you getting them to do that?
You know the answer, though? It depends.
Yeah. I suppose it depends. I mean, let's put it in.
Right. Yeah. So,
do you schedule? Because obviously with coaching, you're trying to empower somebody with information to give them the ability to do it by themselves. Because they're a professional athlete and you are under the chopping block, so to speak, of their result. Do you forcefully is the wrong word, but just say forcefully put them in situations that are, like you said, in the morning, you're going to be doing combat training, and then you're going to do strength conditioning. And then are you focusing putting them in a yoga session to get the response you want? Or are you doing more educative kind of stuff?
Good question. So I'm not really pushing them into classes or anything like that. I will, I'll be accountable for their training. And again, I'll go back to Petr, who's about to have the UFC bantamweight title shot. I've been training him for a couple of years. So the first kind of 8 to 9 months that we worked together was all about general physical preparation, right? It was about building his aerobic energy system. It was about building his strength, his speed, his power, all of his athletic capacities, right? At the same time, we weren't focused on anything in particular. We just needed to get, broad general physical preparation. Then we started going into more specific preparation for each individual fight. Now, as a strength and conditioning coach, and this is why I don't like people saying I'm a personal trainer. Yes, I'm a personal trainer, but for the most part, personal trainer is, someone who fucking counts reps and is a cheerleader, right?
Yeah.
I'm a coach, man.
Yeah. Amen.
I'm a coach, right? So I'm looking at 24 hours of the day, right? So as a strength and conditioning coach, I need to understand strength training protocols, power training protocols, speed training protocols, endurance, energy system conditioning, corrective exercise, rehabilitation, prehabilitation, mobility, yoga, all of these different nutrition, hydration, stress management, the effect of fucking blue light, hormone regulation, gut health, etc. I need to understand all of this shit, man. And then I've got all these tools. I've got a broad spectrum of tools to then apply the appropriate tool at the appropriate time, right? So if I'm driving along in my shitty car with fucking 4 flat tires and no engine oil or whatever, right?
It's like me back in West London, boss.
Yeah, man, I put my foot on the accelerator trying to go faster and faster and faster. I'm going to get a flat tire, right? So I get out and I jack up the car and I have a look at the tools that I've got. And I've got a rattle gun, I've got a wheel brace, I've got a shifter, I've got a spanner, I've got a fucking hammer. Okay, which one of those tools am I going to choose at that time? I'm going to choose the appropriate tool, right? I'm not going to use a fucking hammer. I'm probably going to use, a rattle gun. But if the battery's flat because I've left the car door open overnight and I come back out, then, I need to take the battery out and recharge the battery. I can't use that rattle gun now and I can't use the hammer. I'm going to have to choose a different tool, right? So the different tool, having an understanding of the different tools and what they provide, what value they add is super important to then go, cool, my client's now walked into the gym and this is how they're presenting. So an example of this is I bought Petr a heart rate monitor. And I taught him I was doing it for him before every single training session, right? I check his heart rate variability and have a conversation about, stress and how he slept last night and if he had a fight with the missus and what he had for breakfast and all that sort of shit.
Probably killer.
It's important, right? Like that stuff's important, right? So I would take his heart rate variability and that would give me an indication of how much stress his body's under because, I'm one piece of the puzzle. He's also going to his wrestling coaches. He's going to his MMA coaches. He's going to BJJ coaches. He's going to his striking coaches, plus he's fucking a Russian professional fighter and he's a nutcase, right? So he goes and does his own training as well. So he could be training, 15, 20 hours a week, man. So for me, my job is to make him, stronger, more explosive, faster, better conditioned so that he can apply, all these skills and drills, explosively through a fucking, a 3 to 5 round, 5 minute round fight. But if his other coaches are hammering him in all of his other classes, and he walks into me and his heart rate variability is down. He's dragging his heels, his head's down. We go through, I think I spoke to you about this when I was in Singapore. I saw you over there a few months ago. And I said, you know, one of my assessments, my warm-up is an assessment, man. Most people just fucking roll the legs over on the bike and scroll through Instagram as a warm-up. Like, what a fucking waste of time, man. Dude, honestly, what a waste of time. Again, you know, if that hour that you're in the gym, man, make the most of it. Right?
Value for money, man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, put your phone down, man. Like, you're fucking distracted the other 23 hours of the day. Put your phone down. This is your time to focus on yourself, right? So when he walks into the gym, I'll go through some balance-based work, right? So now I'm focusing on working on the proprioceptive system, right? I'll get him to do some balance drills where we close the eyes, and that takes away the visual system, and then that fires up the vestibular system and the proprioceptive system, right? So then we'll go through some stability-based work, some rehab-based work, and there's a lot of balance and stability in my warm-ups, man, and that's there for a reason. I'm using that as an assessment to see how his autonomic nervous system's balanced, right? If he's all over the place and he's, you know, that might be telling me that maybe he's trained too hard, his central nervous system's a little bit fried. So that means his brain can't connect to his stabilizers and tell those muscles to fire and create stability around the joints. That means that I can't push him as hard in that session, right? I'm not going to tell him that I'm going to back him off, right?
No,
he's not going to like that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, but I'm using, like, he walks into the gym and how he's performing is giving me feedback for the state of his system, and then I'm looking at the different tools as I go, and I go, right, I can see that his balance is a little bit off here. You know, we're not going to focus on like heavy strength work and like high neural drive or neural capacity work, like fucking, you know, power and heavy strength and speed work. So, all right, cool. Let's focus more on some hypertrophy. Let's make this a little bit more rehab based. Let's focus on, you know, getting those hip extensors firing, getting those hip stabilizers firing, you know, creating stability and activation around the scapular, you know, the scapular controlling muscles that are going to create stability in the shoulder, right? So he's still fucking working, but I'm changing it from more of a neural output session to more of a, rather than a functional session, which is more neural driven, we're going to go for more of a structural session, which is more, you know, putting on muscle and correcting motor unit recruitment patterns and rehab and activation and shit like that. Did that answer the question? I was all over the place.
Yeah, no, definitely did. It's funny how, like you said, we obviously met with the Muscle Nose guys, and we're using the similar principles in a totally different setting. But the real one-on-one, like you said, is one, it's the assessment as you as a coach rather than just a trainer. I think that was one of the, I've written down a couple of quotes on here, is I'm not a cheerleader. And like you said, putting someone through a fucking warm-up that's just for the sake of it, and which does nothing and adds to what they're doing, is extremely frustrating. And one of the things that I say to people is, like, you're spending a lot of money to come to the gym and you're taking time away from your kids. Make it worth it. Don't just come and fuck about and it's aimless. I had a call with the guys over in 98 in Sydney yesterday, and his big gripe was the difference between training and exercise. And he was just basically saying, like, if you're training, you've got a goal. Doesn't matter what that goal is, but whatever you're doing needs to add to your goal. Obviously, in your situation, his is to win a fight or whoever. Whereas a lot of people I find who are just exercising, they haven't got the understanding or don't want to learn why they're doing it. Like, if anyone goes into your Instagram and you'll see you're putting a lot of instructional videos about how to do home workouts in COVID at the moment. But your number one thing you start with is why you're doing it. Right, this week I'm using a bodyweight thing, and today I'm doing conditioning, so I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Today I'm using bodyweight strength. You did a wicked one with you fucking showing off on the rings doing a handstand, you prick. But it was something that I like a fat boy will try and do, yeah. But you explain it. You're like, right, stability versus mobility, whatever. I think that's something that other coaches who watch this or other people who are watching this need to focus on. Is everything you're doing is for a reason. And you have a justified reason for that reason. And that's something that it comes with, that's experience, man. That's where it getting the boots dirty. And it's funny how I think the guys who I know who've been where you've been, like, as in from a military background, who have that sort of routine of wanting to, of focusing on the process and knowing why you're doing something. It's really interesting to sort of listen to the way you speak. Is like, you can bring it from anywhere, but you're bringing it back to the why of doing it. And that's what I find fascinating, especially with fighters, man, because there's so much to think about.
Yeah, man. And that's,
Excellent programming.
dude, it's a really good point, man. You know, a lot of people have structure, they have things they want to achieve with work and their career and their relationships and shit like that, you know, and they have this structure around it. They have a reason why they're doing things, but people just don't apply the same principles when it comes to movement. Okay, and that's it, man. That's fucking movement. We evolved to move, right? We evolved to, you know, get up and cover long distances to fucking seek out food, water, and shelter, right? Depending on the seasons. Now, obviously, over the last 100 years or so, you know, the industrial revolution, technological revolution, like where food's becoming more and more abundantly available and movement's becoming, you know, work and shit like that is being taken over by computers and machines and, you know, all this type of stuff. So it's creating this like massive imbalance, man. And to be honest, like movement is so important, so integral for us as humans that we need to make sure that we're getting some movement in throughout the day. Okay, it's not, yes, movement is of course important, but like I said, you know, we should be, our movement should be complementing or counteracting the other 23 hours of the day. So, you know, this is where having some purpose and going, right, what do I do for the other 23 hours of the day? What is going to best serve me for this 1 hour of training time? And again, you know, there's training versus exercise. There's a time and a place for both, man.
Absolutely.
You know, so
there's at the moment, I think you said having a structured training program would be very difficult, and you are technically going to exercise because it's not as adaptive. But like you said, the considerations are the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve from doing that exercise, doing aimless amounts of burpees because you think they make you feel good when you can't sit on a seat properly or you can't do a press up. Take the time to go to bring it back and go, right, how is me doing a push up going to build into when this all does it, when we all go out to the gym and we can go and rip in. Yeah, man, it's super, super interesting. Like you said about sort of building that structure around that. Now, for people that again don't know, and I'm sure friends of mine will come and check out your Instagram, just quickly go over your plan of action with your new podcast. And also, my question is, what's your mission, personal mission? If anyone gave you like a mission statement, what would you say would be your why of doing everything?
So I'll answer that one first. My personal mission statement is, I want to be a world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, working with high-level professional athletes, and I'm already, you know, kind of building that brand, building that reputation. But I'm going to be, you know, focusing on that a lot more over the next few years. In regards to the podcast, I'm putting out a podcast, the Live, Train, Perform podcast. It's not live yet, but it will be live I'm looking to go live next Sunday. And I'm going to be pushing out 15, 25-minute episodes, and I'm going to be covering a lot of this stuff that we've gone through today. You know, so the first episodes, I'm going to be pushing out one episode a day for the first 3 to 4 weeks, just so I can kind of take advantage of the new and noteworthy. And I can have that content there, because one of the reasons that I'm starting this podcast is because a lot of people will come up to me after a class or go through a spiel, and people come up to me after class and start asking me these vague as fuck questions about, you know, what diet should I be following and how many times should we train, what type of training should we be doing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it depends. It depends. You're asking me a vague as fuck question. You're expecting a black and white answer. Like, I don't know anything about you. So, you know, go and listen to this episode, and I've got, you know, a resource that I can refer them to. So the first 2 weeks is going to be all about, you know, introducing who I am, my knowledge, my experience, what I bring to the table, how I learned all this shit and developed my knowledge over the years. And then we go into like goal setting, progress tracking, looking at health markers, then looking at objective progress tracking, then looking at subjective progress tracking. And then it's about like accountability and building consistency and habits and routines and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, it's going to be super valuable for people to just kind of implement a few things into their day, man. And, you know, sometimes it's about adding things into your day, and sometimes it's about taking things out of your day. But, you know, essentially working in line with what your values are, because here's the thing, man, a lot of people think that they come to you and they say, hey, Will, I want to lose 10 kilos. And you're like, all right, cool. You know, I need to know where you're at right now. I need to know what your metabolism's doing. I need to know your movement throughout the day. I need to know your training protocols. I need to know your sleep, your stress management, and what you do for work, your relationships, blah, blah, blah. I need to take all of this into account, right? But when it comes down to it, you ask them this question, like, why do you want to lose 10 kilos? Right. And they'll
no idea.
Yeah, they've got no fucking idea, man, because they haven't actually sat down and asked themselves that question, right? So, you know, that's why it keeps coming back to that why. You need to fucking dig, man. You need to go why, right? It's like, I just want to feel better about myself. Why? You know, maybe they've got low self-esteem, right? And then you go, okay, why do you have low self-esteem? Oh, because you know, no girl wanted to fucking hook up with me when I was in my early 20s or whatever, right? So it might come back down to that. It was like, I just want to get laid. It's like, all right, cool. We found the why. Like, let's get to the root of it rather than fucking giving yourself these, you know, these vague as fuck.
Exactly. It also gives you buy-in as well. Like you said, when you have that sort of, if you've just got, I want to get fit. I find that like people's understanding of what fit and healthy is so construed. People see people just smashing the fuck out of themselves and think that's normal being fit, but being fit and healthy means you're happy and you're sweet and that you're actually, you're on a mission for yourself. There's something that I actually massively learned, and I went through the mill. It was funny listening to how your relationship ended before, and how my previous relationship was torrid, and it was both of our faults. It wasn't just her. We should have done what you did, which was be amicable, because it was done, and I wasn't strong enough at that point in my life. I was clutching at straws. But the one thing that I learned is that until you actually understand yourself and what you're trying to do and why, it's the only way you're going to be able to give it out to other people. And what a lot of people do is they'll come to, like you said, me and you, and they're putting a band-aid over a bullet hole in the respect of, I'm coming to train, I'm going to do it. You're like, whoa, calm down. You're clearly, there's something else going on. And as soon as you start digging and you find that bit that they know they need to work on, that also gives them a root cause to stick to the plan. And that's how you're going to get the result. I think that's what's really key with coaching is you have to dig deep, because what's the point? And unless you have that, like, I need to get here, they're not going to be sleeping properly. They're not going to think about their food and out with their mates for the 4th time in a week, and they're smashing a bottle of red for no reason. That's a huge part of, I think, what is exactly what's true.
Mate, you have to ask the hard questions. You know, a lot of people don't ask the hard questions. And, you know, whenever I take on, you know, I've got an online coaching program as well. So whenever I take on clients, I email them and, you know, I send through all these questions, like pre-exercise questionnaire. But in there, I also say, look, I'm going to be asking hard questions. Like, if you're not okay with that, then maybe we're not a good suit for each other. But if you're okay with that, then, you know, I need to know where your fucking head's at. I need to know that, you know, essentially I'm putting it back on my clients. I'm always putting it back on my clients, man. You know, so if that person that comes to me and says, hey, Will, I think I spoke to you about this in Singapore, actually. Hey, Will,
I was literally about to say it. The best thing we talked about in Singapore was this.
The client comes in and goes, hey, Will, I want to lose 10 kilos. And you go, cool. How, what's your commitment level? How committed are you on a scale of 1 to 10 to achieving these goals of losing 10 kilos? And they're like, I'm a 10, man. I'm fucking ready to roll. All right, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to change my lifestyle. I'm going to get sleep. I'm going to fucking smash myself at training. I'm going to take all these supplements, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, are you willing to track your food? They're like, oh, I've tried that before. Didn't really like doing it. Okay, now you're a 9. Are you willing to track your steps throughout the day? Right. At the end of the day, like, we need to make sure that we're, you know, manipulating energy balance. We need to know what your energy in is and your energy out, so we can make sure that, one, your body is fucking getting enough energy from food to actually survive, to thrive rather than survive. Right. And if you're smashing yourself at training and you're not eating enough, you know, your body's not going to have the resources to be able to build and adapt, right? You're putting yourself into a catabolic state where everything's breaking down, your metabolism's slowing down, rather than building up and getting healthy and improving performance, right? So if you're not willing to track your food, now you're a 9. If you're not willing to track your steps and your daily movement, now you're an 8. If you're not willing to get fucking 8 hours of sleep, 7.5 to 8 hours sleep a night, now you're a 7. If you're not willing to drink 3 liters of water a day, now you're a 6. If you're not willing to, you know, eat 5 servings of vegetable a day, now you're a 5. If you're not willing to eat 2 servings of fruit, now you're a 4. you know? So, and you can just go through those important things, whatever's important to you as a coach. And like, that's literally mine, man. And what you'll find is people are like, oh, they're actually a 3 or a 4. I'm like, right, cool. Like now we're, you know, you're coming in with these level 3 commitments. You need to expect level 3 results.
Nah, I think when we sat down and we were just talking shop for fucking ages. That was my go away message from yours was it was such a good way of putting it for a lot of people that will be listening to this who are, like I said, who think they're training hard, but they're not recovering hard, or they're not progressing, and they're asking you why. Putting it back on them and giving them that as a concept is wicked, because then, like you said, it then becomes, I mean, people who've ever got into shape or who've competed in a sport or who do play sport, they'll know when they're running on full gas because they've given it their all. And it's not actually on a pitch. They don't need to think about on a pitch because it happens, or on a mat or whatever. It's the things that we do, we control through the 23 hours of the day that we're not at the gym, that's hugely going to dictate results. And that doesn't matter whether you're a professional UFC fighter or whether you're Mary Muffin Top trying to lose 10 kilos. It doesn't matter. That I find that part of you that you said, that the way that you put that for coaches, wicked, man. It definitely works, man. And resonates.
And mate, going back to what we said before about the difference between you know, a general population client and a high level athlete, pro fighter, whatever, right? So, you know, again, it comes back to giving people what they need and a little bit of what they want.
What they want, right? Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So the person that comes in has come from, like, I had some mates come over at the start of this year, the Swiss 8 boys. For anyone in Australia in particular, Swiss 8 is a veteran-owned, operated charity that I'm an ambassador for. But essentially, they've developed a website, an app to allow people to structure in the important things throughout the day, right? So as an ex-soldier, a lot of guys went through this, man, where they transitioned from the army to civilian. They fucking lost their way, right? And I kind of did this as well, man, where, you know, I stopped getting up at the same time every morning. I stopped shaving. I stopped fucking, you know, having purpose with my training. And, you know, I was just like, fuck this. I'm not doing any of this stuff anymore. Right. And for 8-9 months or so, I kind of was just floating and was just losing my direction, man. Was, you know, just fucking getting on the piss and
just being,
just being, I was just floating, man. So, you know, I restructured and reinstated those routines and habits that have made me such a good soldier, right? So the Swiss 8 app allows you to structure in, you know, 8 pillars of health and wellness. But essentially, you know, if I'm working with a general population client, then again, I'm looking at the big picture. I'm looking at their life. I'm like, all right, cool. You've got all these other stresses in your life. Okay, maybe going and hammering you through a training session is not going to be ideal. Yes, we're going to do some work, but you know, you fucking spend all day sitting in a chair. So let's go through some warm up. Let's go through some mobility drills, like a sun salutation, for example, from yoga or any other kind of mobility flow that's going to take their joints through full ranges of movement and get their muscles connected to those full ranges of movement, right? So now we're improving movement quality. Then we go into some activation work where we might focus on, you know, some, you know, a little bit of strength work, but mostly stability and activation work so we can get their glutes firing. They've been sitting in the fucking chair all day. Their glutes are going to switch off. Hip flexors become short and tight, right? So they're not going to be as well connected to their glutes. So let's go and do some activation work for the glutes. And the drills that I'm going to use are going to completely depend on who the person is and what their movement capacity is, right? And then we might go, you know what, like, let's do maybe a little bit of conditioning work to round out the session, right? But then we're going to spend, you know, 15, 20 minutes, maybe going through some, you know, balancing out the autonomic nervous system and doing some fucking breath work, man, where we sit there and we stretch and, you know, do these yin style yoga postures, right? So it's all about balance, man. And it's the same with, again, but it's important to understand those different tools and different protocols so then you can apply them at the appropriate time, right? A lot of people, when they have a stressful day at work, you know, they wake up late, they catch every red light on the way to work, their boss is looking over their shoulder, you know, they had a fight with a missus or whatever, they get to work. It's just been a shit day, right? Like, stress has just been adding up. Then they want to go to the gym and fucking hammer themselves. And yes, they feel better for doing that initially, but they're not considering that that low level stress has been adding up throughout the day. Then you add a high amount of stress with hammering yourself at training. Guess what? You feel better initially, but then the next day you're fucking tired, you're fatigued, you run down.
It's long-term reward, isn't it? It just comes down to long-term and short-term reward when it comes down to that. Like you said, is what's your your biggest priority for 99% of people is to get better inch by inch. You're never gonna, like you said, in that situation where when you're under the slam, it's taking responsibility and understanding that you got to get the rest of your shit in order before doing it, and because one session isn't going to happen. And
yeah, exactly,
again, I have that.
Dude, here's an analogy, right? I say this to people all the time. Sometimes, doesn't really fall on good ears. People are like, you're an asshole. But you don't lose weight from eating one salad.
Amen.
Right? You got to fucking do it consistently over time, put yourself into a calorie deficit, make sure you're in a healthy space first, right? Always comes back to that big picture, man. Right? So yes, and again, that's the difference between training. You might, training and exercise, you might go and hammer yourself in a training session, right? And you're exercising, you're getting after it, you're getting the heart rate up, you know what, you feel good, right? But that's exercise. Exercise has no fucking plan. There's no end state. There's no purpose. There's no goal. Exactly. Right. So, it's all about the short term, but training is all about long term. And this is where, here's the thing, man, like my philosophy around general population and professional athletes, it's exactly the same.
Exactly.
Right. It just depends on who they are and what they need. Comes back to my training philosophy. It's that sliding spectrum. Exactly. So, then my professional athlete comes into the gym and I can see that he's fucking, he's dragging his heels, his head's down, his, heart rate variability's down, his balance is off on all his balance and stability-based drills. So, I need to back off his training. Now I might do, hey man, let's spend a lot more time doing some mobility work. And we might spend, 15, 20, 25 minutes going through some mobility work first before we then go into some activation work. And then, I'll do some fucking like Tabata bike sprints at the end to make him feel like he's, right? So I'm spending, exactly, man. So I'm spending 40 minutes giving him what he needs, and then I'm giving him 20 minutes of what he wants, right? And I'm getting a lot more, it's a lot more beneficial for him, man, because everyone thinks they know what they need. That's like me taking my fucking car into the mechanic and saying, hey mate, just change the brake pads and the oil filter and blah, 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 blah. It's like, fuck man, I don't know. I mean, I could do that myself, but I don't know enough about a car to fucking tell a professional how to do their job.
And it's not your shit. You pay for someone and use someone who knows exactly what it is and knows the progress to get there, rather than it being a snapshot of what you think is right, because most of the time, like you said, we're never going to make the right decisions in that respect. It's super interesting, man. But we're just about to get to the hour, man. So we just put where people can find you, mate. And as I said, I'll put it on Instagram and I'll whack it on LinkedIn too.
Yeah, sweet, man. So you can find me primarily at Instagram, which is at KOBES_PFT, at Kobes_PFT. I've got a Facebook business page as well, Performance Functional Training. And I've got a YouTube channel, Performance Functional Training as well, where I've put up a heap of training sessions using, minimal equipment to go through the quarantine process. So there's a number of sessions, focusing on strength, stability, skill development, power, speed, conditioning, endurance, etc., using just one kettlebell or one set of TRX or set of rings or some glide boards or bands and things like that, plus body weight. So there's plenty of options there for people. And I'll be launching like I said, the Live, Train, Perform podcast in the next couple of weeks. So if anyone enjoys the conversation that we've had today, I think I'll definitely look at getting Will on at some stage in the future, and we'll talk shop, we'll throw some shit and have a bit of banter.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, I just said I'll plug it, and there's definitely people here that'll resonate with your message, mate. I mean, you'll have a load of us lot flying to Tiger when we can get there after this fucking time.